Perfect. So, welcome on another release party of Watermill. So I think it's our third one or second one. I think it will be the third one.
The third celebration.
Yep. So quick introduction. We're Robert and Miłosz. So we are founders of Tritos Labs and also creators of Watermill. And we met today to talk a bit about new features that we have in Watermill in the current release. So hopefully it will be something new and interesting for you. And yeah, I guess we can go.
Yeah, let's go. Not this one.
Yep. All right, so Miłosz will now say a couple words what we prepared for you today.
Yeah, just shortly about the agenda. So we focus on the new features, and we will show you more details about design and live examples as well. So hopefully it's more interesting than just reading a blog post. And then we have news about our new cohort of new Go event-driven, and some time for Q&A. If you have any questions, you can just drop them on the chat as well. And at the end, we have the traditional quiz now, and you can win one of those gophers. So we have 3 this time. It's getting more exciting with every release. Okay, so we can go ahead now, I guess. First of all, I want to thank you all contributors to Watermill. It's over 30 of contributors over the last year. So
New ones, I think. I mean, yeah, people that contributed in last year, and I was actually counting last time for across all repositories. I mean, it's a bit more complicated because we cannot just sum everything from all PubSubs that we have, because sometimes people are duplicated, but I think it's over 100 people already, so it's super crazy, actually.
Yeah, and we have more PRs, in progress that we still need to review. So if you are waiting, sorry about that. But we managed to merge lots of them over the last couple of months. So once again, big thanks for helping us develop Watermill. So over to you, Robert, AWS PubSub.
Yep, so AWS SQS and SNS. So many people requested that feature because, well, it's pretty handy for all of you who have pleasure to be deployed on AWS. It's nice because in most cases with Miłosz, we are using GCP. So I think in all cases when we're using some message broker, we're using the hosted one from GCP, so Google Cloud PubSub. And we know how helpful it is when you can just use hosted version. You don't need to run your Kafka or run your Rabbit or whatever. It's very convenient, but yeah, we didn't have this functionality for AWS yet earlier. And yeah, it's out there. So you can use both SNS and SQS, depending on the use case. So SQS, it's basically a queue. So you can have a queue and send some tasks there to create and process. And you can also use SNS as PubSub. So it's very nice for event-driven applications, for example, when you are publishing an event and multiple subscribers can subscribe for that. But it's not that simple actually to implement that this is one of the reasons why we didn't support it earlier. For one reason, because like in GCP or with Kafka or with any other PubSub, it's quite straightforward to subscribe for a message. So basically, you are creating a subscriber, you're subscribing, and everything is working. On AWS, it's a bit more complicated. And this is, it's not that bad still, but you need to figure it out. So in AWS with SNS, to use it as a PubSub, you need to create a queue for each subscriber or subscription that you would like to have, and kind of bind it to the SNS topic and set proper permissions. It requires some time to figure it out, especially if I'm not that person that is that knowledgeable with AWS. So I'm thinking I'm pretty happy that I don't need to work with AWS that much, because very often the errors are really cryptic, and you can post any configuration that doesn't make any sense, and it just doesn't work without any error. But yeah, fortunately, we did it for you, so you don't need to recreate this work. And using SNS is actually quite simple from perspective of Watermill. And this is making all the operations that I mentioned for you. And this is an example subscriber that you're creating. So of course, it requires some configuration, but it's just a matter of the flexibility that we wanted to achieve, because we know that systems can work in really different ways. So for example, you can use as a topic some magic ID from AWS, or you can use just topic, for example. So you can basically configure that, and you can fit it to your use case.
It's a bit like AMQP, right? The model of queues and exchanges. Is it a bit similar to?
Yeah, that's true. But at least with AMQP, you don't need to figure out permissions for that.
But I guess if you run on AWS, this is the best you can have for messaging.
The best. It depends, of course, but yeah, I think it's worth considering because, well, it will be hosted. You don't need to spend time on hosting that, and it will be nice. I mean, of course, please spend some time on proof of concept before going on into this. But yeah, it's definitely worth considering.
Yeah, I would prefer it anyway to, I would prefer fighting with permissions to running my own infrastructure for messaging, I guess.
Yeah. Especially that, also there is pretty nicely working emulator, because I think always this is the thing that is the deal breaker when you have some cloud services, but you don't have emulator for that. And to work with that, you need to connect to the service or whatever. And this is something that we encourage. But the good thing is that AWS isn't really... so there is no official implementation of emulator from AWS. So there were 2 implementations that are unofficial. So we used local stack because it had a bit better error messages that were reflected a bit better. But I think that there is a second one. We are mentioning in the documentation, so you can check it yourself. But again, it's really nice that you have this emulator, and you don't need to... You're not forced to, run your local development with cloud, because I think it's a bit counterproductive.
I think I ended up using local stack for the examples because of some issue of mapping or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
So probably local stack is the way to go.
Yeah. I think probably in the next slide, this is a screenshot from a fully working example. So it's usually, for PubSubs, we are adding the fully working examples with Docker Compose. You can easily run it with one command and play with that and adapt it to your application. So I think it's pretty handy thing. Okay, so I think it's all about AWS. Yeah, so the second thing is delayed Requeuer, and credits for that are going to Miłosz.
Cool. So before we start to dive into this, I just want to spend a moment on high-level Watermill design, because I was thinking about this, that we released 1.0 5 years ago. That's a long time, and we didn't change the public API, which is great, but we still added lots of new features. And what I like about the design is that we have the foundations of a message, a publisher and subscriber interfaces. And it's like at the very bottom, the low-level interface of Watermill. And then on top of this, we have the router handlers, and middleware. And they work with the low-level concepts pretty well. And then we have the even higher level components like CQRS or forwarder or fan in and fan out, and they make use of all this below. And what I like about this is that you can use whatever you like. You can the CQRS component is probably the most convenient to use, but it didn't make the message or publisher deprecated. You just extended them. And I mentioned this because the Requeuer is a bit similar to this. So we have a couple of components that can work separately, and you can use them. And then we have this delayed requeuer component on top, and it works with all of them. It combines them into something that gives you a nice high-level API, and you don't really need to know about how it works underneath. But if you want to extend it, you can just take the elements and set them up yourself.
And I think it's probably excellent example of Unix philosophy that is visible in Go in general in multiple places. So for people that doesn't know that, so definitely worth checking Unix philosophy. And it's pretty old idea. It has 45 years, but it's still very relevant. But you can see it in Go or in Watermill when you will look on, for example, IO reader, IO writer interfaces that are really small interfaces doing one thing and communicating with slice of bytes, for example. You can also see it similarly when you're using terminals. If you're piping some data with cat to grep to some multiple small programs, this is really similar idea basically. And it's kind of visible here. It's visible in Go. And I think it's very, very powerful idea. When you have those separate components, you can use it. So the amount of use cases is much bigger. Yeah? So it's probably nice if you compare some graphical interface application that it has some functionality, but you cannot really reuse it in other contexts. But when you have some terminal tools and you are piping data between them, you can probably support infinite use cases with that. It's just a matter of your imagination.
Yeah, and you can see it in forwarder or fan in or fan out. If you go to the sources, it's actually quite simple code. It's no rocket science. Because the heavy lifting is done by the things it uses, the low-level components. So that's quite nice because it's easy to understand how it works. And if you need a slightly different version of it, you can just copy the code and do it yourself if you want. So I will start with the high-level component here, so you can see how easy it is to use, and then I will dive deeper into the details. So the basic idea of this component is error handling with messages is usually works like this. The message first tries to process, it goes back to the queue, and then is delivered right away to the same handler over and over, retrying until it succeeds. And it is often what you want. But the issue is it sometimes blocks other messages from processing. And there are many variables. Depending on how you set up, it might be something you want or not, because one example is it helps you keep the order of messages the same, which is nice. But if you don't want to do it, you are basically stuck with this error until you handle it somehow. So the idea of the requeuer is to take the message and move it to the tail of the queue. So it stays in the same topic, but other messages can be processed meanwhile. And to use it, we use a poison queue in the middle of it, which is like a temporary queue. And for this release, it is based on Postgres, but it could be extended to something else. If you use another database, for example. So this is the high-level API. I will show it a bit in a live demo. So as you can see, it's quite easy to configure. It's just a few settings, and you are good to go. And there's also a CLI tool that you can use to manage the poisoned messages.
And this is really cool.
Yeah. I will show it as well in the live demo. And yeah, speaking of demo, we can move over to it. So this is the simple architecture of the example. It is one from the repository. I just removed some parts and we'll add them live now. And the basic idea is we have a publisher that publishes an order placed event on the queue on the topic. So let's imagine we have a system where orders are placed, and in response to it, we do something, whatever it is, like sending an email maybe, or adding to some reporting maybe. And it uses Redis as the pub sub. Okay, so moving over to the code. I'll just show you quickly how it looks like. So we have a Redis publisher, super easy setup as you can see. And then we have an event bus from the CQRS component of Watermill, nothing unusual. Then we have event processor, again from CQRS, and a single event handler that just prints that an order has been placed. We could do something more serious here in a real world scenario. And it has a simple validation, so it doesn't accept empty order IDs, which makes a lot of sense, right? Empty order ID would mean a broken event, probably. Then we run the router, and here's some code that generates a fake order every second. So just to show you how it looks like, I will run it. It's using Docker Compose. So all the dependencies are there, and we should see the events. Yeah. So you can see the event handler running now. We have new orders coming in. I think it looks great. Oh shit! Yeah, something happened. So this is, as you can see, there's a lot of errors, and it's really just one error. We received one empty order. I mean, even with empty order ID. And the reason there's so many of the logs is it just keeps being redelivered all the time.
So yeah, Redis is pretty quick on redelivering. And yeah, it's worse if it's using some database under the hood, and your database connection is also... So if your database is fast enough to handle that, it can die soon.
Yeah, as you can see, it goes to the thousands of a second. So I don't know, let's say it's hundreds per second or something like that. So it's something we are often asked about from newcomers to messaging or to Watermill, because they experience this live in the system, and they're like, what's going on? So the issue is simple. There is one message that's broken, and probably can be fixed, and it blocks your queue. So all other messages or other placed events need to wait. And yeah, this is where I want to use the Requeuer, right? So let's see how to do it. So I will use the high-level API, where it's everything configured for me. So I will use new delayed Postgres delayed Requeuer from the Watermill SQL. Delayed Requeuer config. And here's my configuration. So the DB is just DB connection. I have a helper function that returns it. It's just SQL open. Then I have a publisher. So this is where I want to route the messages after they are picked up from the poison queue. So I will use the Redis publisher I already have configured. And then Requeuer topic is optional. I don't need to specify it. It defaults to Requeuer, so I will keep it to default. And yeah, this one is also optional. This is something I can override if I wanted to. And delay on error is the middleware that adds delay metadata, and I can specify the intervals here. So let's say I want to delay the message by 10 seconds, so we avoid this infinite loop of errors. And then let's say I want to make it go up to 3 minutes and multiply the interval by 2 every time it retries. And then we have standard logger, Requeuer, errors. So that's it. I have the requeue created, and then I need to do 2 things. One is I need to add middleware to the router, and it's supplied by the middleware method here. And the other is I need to run the requeue, which is very similar to running Watermill router, because it uses a router underneath, right? And that's mostly it. So let's see if it helped. So I will recreate the environment. And once again, we have orders coming in. And you can see an error, right? So we see the error because of an empty order ID, but then we have next events coming in. So it didn't block the queue. And you can see there are now 2 errors because every 10 seconds there's a new empty order ID being added. And yeah, this is what I wanted to achieve, right? So the queue is not blocked. And the hard part about using Poison queues is it's quite often easy to just add an event to the Poison queue, but then you don't know what's in there.
And income of company is going down.
Yeah, so you don't know how to do it. So basically we have the CLI for this. So it's called PQ, and like Poison queue. And I will do PQ backend Postgres and topic Requeuer, which is the default one. And yeah, for some reason it doesn't look great in Golang. Huh.
Maybe you can scale it a bit.
That's weird.
Maybe command minus.
This. Okay, let me switch to my terminal then.
Remember, kids, don't do live demos.
Yeah, especially since I tested this in this view and still didn't help. So let's have this. Never mind, I will just share my terminal. Cool. So this is the view from my Poison queue. And what you can see here is all the events that are stuck. You can see this is refreshed, and you can see the Requeuer column. It basically means once the event will be delivered again to the Redis topic. And you can go inside, and here you can see the metadata of the event. So like you see how long it has been delayed for, and until, and how many retries have there been so far, and other details of the Poison. And you can also show the payload. If it's JSON, you will see it pre-printed here. So you can easily see that there is no order ID, for example, here. You can also see the error here because this is what the Poison middleware provides.
Nice. I think it's nicely showing how all of those elements when they are connected, it's pretty powerful at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Because the Poison queue middleware is something we had implemented, 4 years now, probably since the beginning, and it really nicely fits here. So if I can go into this, and I have 2 more actions, I can requeue which basically means retry right away. So as you can see, it is now ID 50 and UID C75. If I requeue it right now, yeah, the interface shows me a warning that this is read-only because the message is gone. But I should see it somewhere. Yeah, it's now 100. You can see C75, and the retries have been bumped. So now it reached the maximum delay, and after 3 minutes, it will be delayed by another 3 minutes. But with messages like this, like I'm missing data, we can't really do anything about it. Or I mean, we can do fix forward in the code, but if the message is just broken, we can always just acknowledge it, which will drop it forever from the queue, which is sometimes what you want, but be careful with it because right now there is just no way to recover this data. It's gone forever. Right. So that's it. Yeah, regarding customizing this, there is this configuration I showed you in the code. But if you go in the sources, you can also see that it's actually not that complex because the new delayed requeuer constructors combines all those elements into one interface that's easier to use. But if you wanted to, you can do it manually. Just add the middlewares yourself and use another backend if you want. Which leads us to delete messages, which is a kind of similar feature. It basically lets you delay messages, yeah. And you can either use the low-level interface, so it just adds metadata on the message. So this is what you can what you can see here. You have any message and you call delay message on it, and you can delay it for, in this example, 8 hours. Or if you use a CQRS interface where you don't have access to the message, you can use the delay with context, which decorates the context. And in this case, we do delay until some feedback date. The important thing about it is delay by itself doesn't delay anything, right? This component just adds metadata. So you need to use it with a PubSub that supports delays. And for this release, this is Postgres. It could be extended with others in the future. For now, this is it's the simplest to do with databases, basically. So moving on to the demo, we have a similar example right now. We have an order placed event published, and then we use a command bus to publish send feedback form command. And this goes over Redis as well. The idea is to have a feedback form sent to the customer, let's say after 3 days of the order placed. So we know by then the customer received the order and they can share some, they can write it online or just share some feedback with us. And this is the second example, so let me show it. Again, that's quite similar. We have a Redis publisher, event bus, command bus, event processor, command processor. That's quite standard CQRS setup. Then we have an event handler, which the event handler, which at the moment just logs that an order has been placed, and it sends the send feedback form command to the command bus. And then on the command processor, we have a command handler on this command, that just, again, for this example, it just logs sending feedback, but in a real world scenario, we would call some email service here to send the feedback form. And again, we have some simulator of orders placed. Okay, I didn't kill the other one. Yeah, so this is the example, and as you can see, it works, but the issue is we send the feedback form right away. So once someone orders, they will receive the feedback form in the same minute, basically, which is not what we want. So now we want to delay it. And the architecture of this is a bit similar. We will again use Postgres as a delayed queue. And we'll use the forwarder component, which is something that existed in Watermill for a few years, to move it from Postgres to Redis, because Redis is our main PubSub here. So we use Postgres as just a temporary place for those messages before the time they are scheduled for comes. So I will start with, have a Redis publisher. So the first thing we need is SQL publisher, because we want to publish to SQL now. And there's something called delayed Postgres publisher. So it's similar to the Requeuer, but it's called publisher. We can need DB and we need config. In this case, I'm happy with the defaults. Just provide logger and that's it. And I want to go to the command bus here and replace Redis publisher with SQL publisher, because we want to publish commands on this SQL queue. And then I will go to the command handler, sorry, the event handler for order placed, where we send the command. And before sending it, I will add a delay to the context. So I do delay with context, and I will delay it for, I would do normally like 3 days, let's say, but just for the demo, let's do it for like 8 seconds. So that's it for the publishing side. And then we need to move it from Postgres to Redis. So I will create a forwarder, and it requires a subscriber and publisher. We have the Redis publisher, so that's fine, but I need a subscriber. So it's the same idea as with SQL publisher. This time it's the subscribing side. So it's new delayed Postgres subscriber, pass the DB, and subscriber config. Yeah, I don't want to override anything. Yeah, let's keep it like this. Just pass the log. Wait. Yeah, that's fine. Just pass the logger. So I'm telling the forwarder to forward messages from SQL subscriber to Redis publisher. Then we have the logger, and then we have the config. And in the config, the only thing I need to specify is the topic, which can be any string. Let's just call it forwarder. This. And then, just as with router, I need to run this thing. this. Okay. And the last part is publisher decorator. So this SQL publisher right now is not aware that I'm using a forwarder. But there's a simpler way to do it. I just need to decorate it. So what I do is I assign the same variable here. I'm doing forwarder new publisher. I pass the publisher here, and then I pass the config. Oops. What else? And again, the only thing I need to specify here is the forwarder topic, which needs to be the same as in the subscriber. In the forwarder.
No worries if you think that it's a lot of things to configure. No worries, it's already an example. So if you want to recreate that, you can just go after the party to examples and run it and play with that. So
you could also use the SQL subscriber directly, but no, this is a more real-life scenario where you have a proper pub/sub like Redis and just route messages from SQL to it.
Yeah, so it's actually also something that we were discussing before releasing that, okay, at the beginning, the example was a bit simpler. From other side, it wasn't that real world, let's say. So, okay, we decided that, okay, let's better make this example a bit more complex, but useful, because we know that, okay, if we'll create the simpler example, at the end, it will be not useful for you, because we know that it's not how it's working on production. So
maybe let me just go over the changes once again, so it's more clear. So first I created this SQL publisher. This is the new part. Then I wrap it with forwarder publisher, which adds this, it's called an envelope around the message. It's for forwarding. And as you can see, I'm just assigning it to the same variable because this returns a interface. Then I changed the command bus publisher to use the SQL publisher instead of the Redis publisher. I added the context when publishing the command bus. When publishing the command on the command bus. And finally, I need to set up the forwarder, which means forward messages from SQL to Redis, and then just run it. So if I did it right, we should see the example working now. So I received an order from Luciano, and you can see I send a feedback form to him 8 seconds later, right? So right now it's the feedback forms are delayed. And in real life scenario, I would use days instead of seconds, but the idea is the same. Right? Yeah, that's it. And you could also do something like, instead of delay 4, you could also calculate the time somehow and do it like delay until. So just specify some time in the future. Whatever. Yeah. That's this. Cool. So this is the architecture we ended up with. And this leads us to the PostgreSQL schema, which this delayed publisher is based on. So if you are aware of Watermill SQL, it supports something called schema adapter and offsets adapter. And we added a new one that's called Q schema. And you can think of it as a simpler version of the default one because it supports no consumer groups. So you have just a single queue and all subscribers will share the messages on it. It also has no Postgres transaction ID, which is bit tricky in some situations to handle. So those are the downsides. But in return, you have some nice features because you can use a custom where clause. So you can filter the messages returned by Watermill by some custom condition, basically whatever you want. And in the example here, you can see I filter it by metadata. So I don't know, we could skip some messages that have certain metadata in it, or in case of the delayed publisher, it uses the delay metadata to filter by messages that should be published, that were scheduled before now.
Yeah, I think that this PostgreSQL schema is also excellent choice for outbox pattern, because usually when you're doing outbox pattern, actually you don't need consumer groups. You can have basically a queue, and it can simplify it under the hood a lot. Because, for example, when you were using the old one, you need, so if the volume of messages was problem for you, you needed to clean them up, and it's something that you needed to do. And in this case, you can basically just delete act messages, and it will be a bit simpler.
Yeah, and the other nice thing is you can delete act messages. So when using the Postgres schema for outbox, right, it's often the case that you just use it to move the messages to the other queue, but they stay in the table. So you probably, if you have a high volume of messages, this will grow, and you can probably delete it over time, but also you need to be careful about it so you don't lose messages that you want to keep. And here you can just switch this flag, delete on ACK on the offsets adapter. And what it means is, you will just delete the row after the message is acknowledged, and the table stays small.
It's not that it may be a bit problematic so it's sometimes useful to have messages in outbox for debugging. So
yeah,
it's some trade-off, but again, it depends.
Right, I think that's it. So over to you, Robert, with performance upgrades.
Yeah, so we have a bit more updates on Postgres actually. So one thing that we did is that we improved performance of Postgres adapter by 235 times on bigger message volumes. And I think it's interesting story how we made that, because it's one of those things that you probably would prefer to not know about Postgres, but yeah, I wasn't aware of that, and I will show you what was the problem. Again, it was for bigger volumes, but again, the idea of Watermill is that it should work with bigger volumes, so that's why we needed to solve this. So this is actually how the update looks like. So if you look on it, it doesn't look like it can make this query 235 times faster. So basically what we've made is wrapping entire query in select and doing our order outside of that. That's it. That's this magic change. But you may wonder, okay, how it helped? It's pretty interesting actually. So this is the query plan, the original one. So you can see that it's taking in bigger volumes. It was taking up to 185 milliseconds to query messages from Outbox or from our table that we're using. So it's in general a bit slow, and when you would like to query these messages pretty often, it can create a lot of database load. You can see that the problem in this explain was that we were doing pretty big index scan, and it made this slow. And okay, what you are usually doing when you see such big index scan? Okay, let's see if index is correct and we're doing making queries properly. So I checked the code, because it was a bit surprising to me, like, okay, we wouldn't define that. And okay, in the code, well, the index looks fine. So we had index on transaction ID and on offset, and we're querying it in a way that this index should be used efficiently. I started to wonder, maybe this is because of type of transaction ID that is XID8. So this is Postgres type that is used for storing the transaction ID. I will not go into the details. I think that during previous live we were covering why we need to do such complex query to get messages. But long story short, serial IDs are in Postgres are not really incremental. So they are generated during transaction, but when transaction is committed in different order, because one transaction is, for example, slower, messages may be out of order, and we may lose messages if we will not do this magic trick. So I started to wonder, maybe problem is this XID8 type, maybe index on that doesn't work that much, but I started to look deeper and okay, it seemed that it's not the problem. And after looking in internet for a bit of time, I found out there is a known problem or known feature of Postgres, and it's often referenced as Postgres query planner misestimate. And basically, the problem is that when Postgres query planner see that we are doing limit 1 here in this previous query, those are some materials if you're interested, if you would like to read a bit more about that. But long story short is that the query optimizer sees that, okay, we have limit 1 here, so probably it will be an easy query to handle. It will be not problematic. Unfortunately, in practice, it's not. But there are multiple tricks to force query planner to rethink its life. And one of those what I found working best was basically wrapping this part of query with putting it to subquery and putting order all of that. And yeah, in this case, we're fooling query planner to plan query properly. And that's actually it. And this helped us. But it may be also useful for you when you're working with Postgres with a lot of data. So I tested it for up to 1 billion messages, and it was working pretty fast. So it should be more than enough for most of the use cases.
This issue isn't happening for MySQL, right? It's just for Postgres.
Yes, because for Postgres, we don't need to do this magic where here, because in MySQL, as far as I remember, IDs are in general incremental. So we don't have this problem that we need to put transaction ID to query to ensure that that we are not missing any message. Again, if somebody is interested, I think during previous live, we're going a bit deeper into this transaction ID thing because it was the thing that we're fixing. And yeah, we have also a bit more tests for that. So yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, hopefully it's the last issue with those Postgres queries.
Yeah, it's actually interesting that, you can think that it's kind of simple. So I have a table and I want to get
all. How hard can it be?
Yeah. But yeah, we're learning more and more that at some cases it's not that easy. But yeah, I hope that it will be the one of the last big updates. But yeah, now again, it's nice. It's can handle a lot of messages, and you can really use Postgres now as MVP replacement for PubSub, or even a bit later. I know some companies that are using are still pretty big scale and are using SQL-based PubSub, and it's enough for them.
Yeah, which reminds me, we need to run benchmark once again with the new settings.
Yep. As a reminder, so we have some Watermill benchmarks, but we plan to update them before live, but we didn't manage because of lack of time, but yeah, we definitely will do it soon.
Yeah, something for the next time. Hopefully not in a year. Cool. Speaking of new releases, we have a new release of Watermill AMQP, and we are mentioning this because there's a more general API change we try to do now. So the issue here was that build topology from topology builder interface lacked routing key. And this was, in retrospect, this was quite a poor design choice to just have a list of strings in a method, because then it's hard to predict what we will need in the future.
Yeah, and normally when you're building services, it's not a problem, because you can just refactor that and it's not an issue.
So thankfully, we avoided major bump in the main repository. So that's nice, but we had to do it a few times for the pub sub-repositories. And in this case, we changed this QName and exchange name strings to params. And it's basically a struct with those variables plus topic and routing key. And it allows for more custom configuration of the RabbitMQ topology. And this is something we will try to do from now on to all interfaces. You can also see it in CQRS. So, for example, in all the functions in the config that where you specify some string, like you return the subscriber or you return the topic name or whatever. They all take params. And this is a bit more verbose, maybe, because you need to create a struct every time you configure it. But the nice part is we can add a new field to the struct, and it's not a major change. So we will stick to this for now on.
So yeah, but remember, we're building library where we are giving backward compatibility promise, so it makes sense. But don't use it for your services or whatever, because probably it will, as long as you don't have a lot of parameters, but it's not that big problem in normal services, let's say, because, okay, you don't need to keep, or even for internal libraries, because you are able to usually update them. But again, it's a bit different use case. So remember, if you are going with such a pattern, choose it wisely.
Yeah.
And yeah, I see that chance that waiting for that. And yeah, I think actually a lot of people mentioned that they were waiting for this routing key thing. So
yeah, it took us embarrassingly long to review and merge. So sorry about that. We're trying to review all the missed PRs now.
And by the way, just a reminder, so at the end we'll answer all questions. So if you have any questions or whatever, feel free to ask it on the chat and we'll answer it at the end. You can also ask it later, so no worries, we'll be there as long as you have questions.
Yeah, and a similar change in Watermill SQL v4. So again, this is a major version bump. So we had the same need. When I developed the delayed Requeuer, I needed to change the parameters one of the queries received. And again, we decided to just change all the methods. So all of them now take params struct instead of those individual arguments. And also we extended them to return errors, because if you take any number of params, you might decide that some of them are incorrect or whatever, and it's better to have more verbose interface and return an error rather than panic, or it's hard to decide what to do if you can't return an error. So if you use the default schemas, you don't need to do anything. You can just pull the new version and it will be fine.
Yeah.
If you have a custom schema, you need to adjust the interface. It should be an easy change. Just you need to return errors and take those parameters.
Because we know that it may look a bit scary, like it's okay, v4 or whatever, but we want to be very honest on, okay, if you're breaking anything at any chance that it can be not backward compatible, we prefer to just bump major and be honest with you. But from other side, we're also doing our best to make the migration as simple as possible. So like Miłosz said, so if you don't have a custom schema adapter, probably it's not breaking change for you, probably. So.
But as you can see here, this v4 is RC, so it's still a candidate for the release. And the reason is we're waiting for one more PR, which I think is also a big big ask from the community. So basically, the big issue with Watermill SQL right now is we depend on the database SQL models from on the standard library, and there are ORMs or other libraries, I think Ant or whatever, or ORM that doesn't use the standard models that are not compatible, which is an issue because you can't use the outbox pattern. You can't create a new SQL publisher within the same transaction. So that's something we want to fix, and we are still looking into some PGX issues. So we decided to wait with the v4 release, so we don't need to do v5. So you don't need to adjust one more time. And hopefully this will happen in the next weeks, so it's not a long wait.
Or we will not find any other thing on the Postgres.
Yeah, you never know.
Hello, I have 10 billion of messages.
Yeah. And once again, thanks to whoever contributed those changes and also the Watermill AMQP changes. I won't try to pronounce usernames. I will do it in a better way anyway. So. Thank you very much, guys. Okay, Robert, this is your change.
Yeah, my change. Actually, I noticed it recently when I was preparing a demo for. So, by the way, if any of you will be on the GoLab conference, we'll be there together with Miłosz in Florence in 2 weeks, I think. Yeah, in less than 2 weeks. Okay, when I was preparing a demo for this conference, I noticed that we don't have one functionality that is very often useful for me in real projects, and it's mapping of Watermill log levels to other log levels. So if you're writing your own implementation of Logger, you can do it out of the box. But now when we have a slog, we can just use a slog, but it would be good to. Okay, so by example, so when Miłosz was doing demo, you could notice that there is a lot of logs from Watermill that sometimes may be interesting, sometimes it may be just a bit.
I actually wanted to hide them, but decided it's right.
Yeah. But long story short, sometimes problem is that info levels of Watermill can be something that you can consider as debug, or sometimes maybe have some configuration if you would like to have it or info of not. And basically this special adapter allows you to do that. So for example, you can say that, okay, all Watermill logs should be logged as debug with slog, and that's it. Simple, but useful thing, basically. And still, all error logs or whatever, it will be logged as error, so you will not lose it.
Cool, and I think the last update is we have a new docs website.
Hooray, done by our principal front-end engineer, Miłosz. Yay!
So there's no like a huge changes, but mostly cosmetic, but it should be easier to go through it. I think the old one was a bit hard to find things, and now we have a proper search functionality, and you can see all the topics in one place.
And we have dark mode.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. And we added also a couple of more high-level documentation, also on the Requeuer, so you can find it all there.
By the way, did we mention the logo? Is it somewhere or?
Oh, we didn't. It was on the first slide.
So you may notice that, we have now the new logo of Watermill. So it looks basically very similar to the previous one, but it's a bit reworked. So we still have Gopher vomiting to Kubernetes logo. It's our tradition, but it's a bit nicer.
All right. I think we should move on then. So the other point of our agenda is our next release of Go Event Driven. So we just started the 3rd edition sale, and it's available to buy for the next 2 weeks. So just have a couple of slides of reminder if you didn't have a chance to look into it yet.
Yeah. So again, so if somebody did have a chance to, participate of any of our trainings, so it's self-paced, but it's still training. So it's not a video course that you're watching videos and later doing nothing, and later you are trying to use it on production and you have no idea how to use that. No. So in our case, it's really hands-on, and you need to code to finish that, because this is how we believe that it's best way to probably it's only way to learn some techniques to code that, because just reading books or watching videos about that, there's no way that you know how to use that. So in best case, you will, do it for money of your boss and you would learn on that, but it will be not that efficient, because very often we are, trying to apply techniques that doesn't fit to some projects, that just to learn something, and it doesn't end up nicely usually. So in our case, you are building the real life project, and you are guided by us, and you can learn it piece by piece. So I think that it's something very, very unique, and I think nobody else is doing that. Especially that, you don't need to code in a web browser. You are using your IDE, and everything is executed on our side. So you don't need to have even Docker or Go installed. It's everything done by us. So it's making this. So from one side, okay, it's really hands-on and it requires effort to learn. But from other side, we're also trying to do it as simple as we can. So it's so again, it's require effort, but it's very, very time efficient, I would say, because we gathered all our knowledge in one place and we packed it to the training.
It's also how we used to learn, right? So I wanted to recreate how, long time ago, we would read a book on PHP and didn't know how to use it. But only after committing to some project that was too ambitious and failing and just repeating, we learned the best. So I wanted to recreate this process of learning by practice.
Yeah, especially that I think actually we have a lot opportunities to learn. So, we're writing in PHP before it was fancy like now. And I would say that before jQuery was fancy, because I remember
the first wave of PHP.
yeah. But, I also remember that we were creating some websites together when jQuery wasn't existing yet. So, yeah, it was fun times. But long story short, I think we have some experience on so we already learned ourselves how we can learn efficiently, and now we would like to share it with you. So this is it, and already 872 developers joined previous editions. So we actually opened sale some time ago, and without any marketing, some people already started to buy that. So it's pretty good sign. So I hope, and I guess we may have 1,000 people on board after this 2 weeks. But yeah, let's see, maybe not. Okay, so this is it. So this is some, how it works in practice. So you can see that in browser there is the content that so the exercises that we are showing you, and in your IDE whatever you want. So it can be Golang, it can be NeoVim, it can be VS Code. You can use that and just work like you're normally working, because I think it's pretty important, because if you're creating projects in browser and later you are trying to apply it in work, you have no idea how to work that. And in this case, you're working, so we're kind of replicating the real experience of learning by building. And it's how it works. Okay, what's inside? So just super quickly. So yeah, you're joining, you have content to everything, and you can just make it in, my camera died, whatever. You can probably try restart that. Yeah, so it's over 20 hours of just coding. So we try to pack it as much as we can, but from other side, event-driven architectures are not that trivial. So to have this minimum to be able to deploy to production and feel confident with that, it's the time that you need. So there are 21 different modules. So if you Google GUI event driven, so you can check exactly what modules are there, because it may be not best use of your time to go over that. I think it probably, I did actually some time tracking to time track how much time it took us to create that. And I feel, so for one, I don't remember how much modules it was, but a total, it was probably a couple hundreds of hours of our work to create that. So, it's really, I still have PTSD from the time of creating that, but I think it was still worth. What's also useful for you, so there is also a Discord channel when you can discuss with us solutions, and we are also happy to provide your feedback. So I think it's also pretty useful. It's lifetime access, so you can buy it now, and you will have access to all updates and all future editions that will happen. So people that bought earlier still have access to that and still will receive all the updates. And maybe we'll also add some other programming languages to future. And I think if you buy in this sale, we'll still include that, but I'm not sure actually if we'll include it in the next sale. So better to buy now. For one more reason, we're increasing price each time. So, if you will not buy now and do it later, you'll need to pay more. Especially that, if you plan to do some bigger updates or whatever, the price may go much, much higher. So probably people that bought at the beginning when we were doing pre-sale paid the smaller price, but still you can have better price than people that are buying in the future. Right, so what is the current price for the thing that we spent this hundreds of hours to work? So this time it's $399 plus tax if it's applicable. And as I said, so price unfortunately will probably go higher. We don't know how much yet, but it will depend on how many updates we'll do in the future. So again, if you would like to buy in better price, we recommend doing it now. If you are also living in a country with lower income, we are also offering some discounts. Please go to cart and it should show to you if you're living in a country with lower purchase power parity. And one very, very important thing, as we said, so nobody else have probably training in this formula. So you may be not sure if it's something for you, but no worries. We have pretty flexible refund policy. If you will be not happy about that, no questions asked, you can get full refund in 30 days. If you will manage to finish training in those 30 days, no worries, we can give you a refund. We don't care. It's more important for us that we'll be satisfied from that. We believe that, if you'll be satisfied, you don't want to have refund. But by the way, we almost don't have refunds. So again, we're totally not afraid of offering this policy. And again, it's pretty for us that, you're not satisfied with that. It's not formula that will work for you. Again, no worries. We can just refund and everybody's happy at the end. And that's, I guess, time for the Q&A. So let's go over the chat. Hello.
I think Simon was first.
Sorry?
I think Simon was first with the new course.
Yeah, so it seems that some people are waiting for other courses because, we are planning some other ones. We don't want to give any dates yet, as we don't know yet, but we're working on that and we have some plans. Probably we'll be able to share it soon. But before that, we wanted to, close Watermill release, do some cleanups around. And after that, I think we will be starting to think about another training soon. So again, training, not course.
So for context, we have we collect mailing lists for the DDD, backend, and microservices trainings. You can see it on the website. So if you want to be notified, just join the list, and we think we will have more news start of the year.
Yep.
Or at least which one will be the first. This is a decision we need to make.
And I think it's worth to joining the waiting list because we'll be also asking some questions. What you need to have there. So, so it's also beneficial for you, because if you suggest something that you believe that is useful for you, we can just include it to the future training. So I recommend it to join the waiting list. All right, so the second question. I have a question. If you guys get time, why isn't Redis PubSub native implementation in Watermill? Is it because it's quite simple already, so there is no benefit or in abstraction over it? So Miłosz probably is a better person to answer this.
Yeah, I'm just not sure, Benjamin, what you mean by native. Do you mean Redis instead of Redis streams?
Or I think somebody was also asking about Redis PubSub. But
yeah, so there is a Redis PubSub implementation, I mean, unofficial one, and you can find it in Watermill Awesome on Watermill.io. Why it's not native? Because no one pushed it to release 1.0. So we had a contributor come to us and ask to make Redis stream implementation like official, imported to the GitHub organization. Okay, yeah, you meant Redis PubSub. Yeah, I think it's like with any other PubSub. So basically, we wait for someone to pick it up, test in production, and fix any bugs or issues. And we can help with reviewing, or we can move it to the organization, make it public. The issue with PubSubs in general is that we don't run all of them on production, so it's quite hard for us to pick something up and just say, "Yeah, guys, go and use it now." So it's often we collaborate with contributors who actually use the implementation, and it's the best test that we can release 1.0 and make it official.
So to recap, my camera died again. I think it's overheating, but if
I can find the Redis one, maybe we can. Okay, there's one for Redis ZSet. I'm not sure if this is the same as Redis. Yeah. So maybe you can take a look at this implementation if you are interested, or if you feel like it, you can also start your own implementation of Redis PubSub instead of Redis streams, and let us know, ping us, we can help you review it, test it, and so on.
It's so hot here, our cameras are overheating, and yeah, if you see blank, it means that our camera is overheated, but yeah, it's fine. Yeah. So yeah, as Miłosz said, so we're happy to, if you see that it may be useful to, well, we'll need some help, obviously, but yeah, we're eager to get it. All right. Yeah, Krzyś said, point well made. So yeah, and by the way, it's very also useful to have the input from you, because again, we didn't have many situations to use Redis in this way, but if we hear a lot of feedback and a lot of people are mentioning that, okay, it will be useful for them, so we're also trying to prioritize more.
Yeah, it's similar to the PRs we merged over the last couple of months. So the hard part of reviewing PRs from other PubSubs we don't use is that it's hard to understand what's going on, how it can impact existing implementations. So we tend to be very, very careful, because messaging is usually quite critical part of any system. So we don't want a simple change in a PubSub implementation breaking someone's production. So that's why reviews often take longer, because we try to avoid any issues, and it's similar with new PubSubs.
But so far, I was actually thinking about that lastly, and I think we didn't have so far any bug like that broken something. So I think it's Good achievement.
Yeah, that's a good sign, I guess.
So we are doing this job pretty well.
Yeah, and the nice part about implementing your own PubSub is that we have this universal test suite. So you can scrap something together and then run the test suite, and if the tests pass, there's a good chance it works.
Yep.
So you can you can play with something on your own, and I think it's a nice exercise because you have this. It's like a bit like a part of our training, really. You have this validator, so you just need to pass the test. And implementing PubSub is fun because it's just two interfaces, really, and there's a lot of complexity behind. And it's surprisingly many things can fit this interface, right?
Yep, that's true. Yeah, Chris, no worry that you were late. It's fine. You've been not that late.
Thanks for joining.
Yep. Well done. Yep. Well done, Miłosz or me. I don't know where it was posted, but well done everybody who contributed to this release. Great work on that. I will remember that back in future. I think it was about the Postgres. So yeah, good to know. Usually you probably will not see that because I think Outbox is also pretty specific because it's querying for a message over and over, and usually it's not returning anything, and sometimes it's returning something. So probably you may not have this specific problem, but yeah, still good to know. Good to know that it exists. But by the way, you can imagine my face and my sanity when after I've seen that, like I wrapped it with subquery and what? I needed to rethink half of my life, but yeah, fortunately it helped. I think this one is about the routing key in AMQP. So yeah, we hope that more people will be able to use it.
I actually ran into it myself as well a while ago. I had to do some hacks to make it work. It's better to do it this way.
Yeah, so Benjamin asked about the PR about this SQL optimization. So this is PR number 38 in SQL. Do those with the previous cohort have access to the new edition? Yes. So as we said, so this is part of our promise that you are receiving access for. I probably should not use word ever because it will be an overstatement. But just in case if you will die or whatever, we'll send you all the content, so we'll be able to run it yourself. But hopefully, we'll live forever. So if you live forever, you will have access forever. You never know.
Yeah, we also didn't do like a big module updates this time, mostly smaller updates, but we plan more in the future. Like for example, this Requeuer could be one new module to the training.
Yep. Yeah, it was a question where to subscribe. So you can Google or go here. So 3.tech/even-driven. Yeah, so Benjamin, so it was about the question about Redis versus Redis streams. So this one we answered. All right, sounds good. And yeah, this is this Redis implementation. So Redis PubSub implementation, not Redis streams. So worth checking if you. Again, so if you feel that it may be useful for you, useful to have it in officially supported, yeah, we can totally do that.
Yeah, you can also check Watermill Awesome page, the docs. So there's quite a lot of unofficial PubSubs. So they might work, but we don't know. We didn't test them.
Dima is asking, so is CQRS interface considered stable for production? Would you recommend it over plain low level for mid-sized projects? So yes, CQRS interface is so it did have, so since totally the beginning we did one deprecation because at the beginning we have super big facade for that or whatever, and it was a bit more complicated. It's still supported, it's just deprecated, so we'll not add new features for that. But in general, CQRS is it's working as at the beginning. So the interfaces for handlers is totally the same. The thing that we recently added is the support of generic handlers. And this is super nice thing because it's making implementation of handlers much easier. And yeah, it's totally stable and we totally recommend using that. And I would even probably say that it can be the default for projects. So if at the beginning, I would say check if I can use CQRS, and if you can use that. If you have some special situation when you're not interested in unmarshalling events or commands or whatever with JSON, probably it's matter of using, so probably using just router may be a bit better for it. So this is the pyramid that you may remember that Miłosz was showing a bit earlier. So choose the thing that works for you and probably start with things that are on the top.
Yeah, it's the interface we've been using on production basically since 1.0.
Yeah.
Especially since the last update with generics, it's just the most convenient because you don't need to play with marshalling or so on.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can see the examples I showed. There was this event bus and event processor setup. It was very minimal. And it's all you need to do.
So I think it's great because with this new generic SQRS component, if you would like to add a new handler, it's a matter of implementing one function and everything else works out of the box. And it's great because I think it's actually easier to implement new event on command handler than HTTP handler because you just don't need to generate anything. You don't need to do any routing. It's just done out of the box. So highly recommend it. All right, so next question, probably for you, Miłosz, as you were building this.
As examples, yeah. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Can you mention which one was it? Was it the one with HTMX or the other one? And this is something we struggle with in general because we have lots of examples and many were created years ago, and they are often based on Docker. Sometimes there's some version mismatch or they don't work on Windows or stuff like this. Yeah, the v1, I thought so. Cool. If you can provide a PR, that would be great. Thank you. As Robert mentioned, I am the principal front-end engineer over here, which means we lack some competence. So yeah, the front-end parts are usually not the state of the art.
Job titles degraded so much.
Thank you for noticing. If you notice anything like this in any other example, just submit a PR. And if we don't respond to the PR right away, please ping us on whenever you want, because we tend to forget sometimes.
But it's also worth mentioning that more prepared is the PR, bigger chance that it will be merged in general. So because if if we see that PR is nicely done, it's tested and it makes sense, it's a bit faster. But from other side, also if you have some bigger idea or whatever, it's worth checking with us on Discord, for example, if it's a good direction, because it's I think we don't have many of those situations, but sometimes it can be a situation that somebody spent weeks on working on something, but it's kind of not working. Watermill. I think we don't have such situations yet, but I know that it's sometimes happening in other open source projects. So it's better to discuss some bigger changes with us, and maybe we can also suggest how to implement it easier, maybe. But if those are fixes of stuff, for example, examples that it doesn't work, I think it's pretty simple because sometimes we don't have enough time to fix it ourselves, and we'll be more than happy to merge it.
Sometimes it's just better to keep it on a separate repository, for example, because it might be something that's useful. But for example, we try to keep the dependencies minimal on the main repository. So if you integrate Watermill with something else, perhaps it's better to use a separate repository for this.
And this view thing is, I think, an interesting example that usually on backend we don't have these problems. For example, some of you may know the white workouts project that we created some time ago. So example, domain-driven design project, and most of backend stuff through 5 years probably, is still up to date. But on front end, it's totally irrelevant. Probably we should just rewrite it from scratch, and it's actually in Vue, and it's like that's why we love backend. At least.
Thankfully, Go modules are finally stable and useful, and we had no issues with them over the last 6 years. But before that, it was quite problematic.
Yeah, but I think it's also nice about backend, and also just a couple words about Go event driven. That those are not things that we invented. Those are techniques that are out there for probably 15, 20 years or whatever. And I know AI, etc., but it still be relevant probably in 20 years. Maybe it will change a bit. Maybe there will be a bit different message brokers. But still, the core should be relevant for a pretty long time. So I think it's also a nice investment because you can learn it now and use it for much longer. On front end, you learned Vue 5 years ago or React, and probably it's changed pretty much since that time. Not mentioning learning jQuery 15 years ago, but okay, it seems that it's trendy again. So, but probably you may have problem to find a nice job with jQuery. I'm a bit afraid what kind of projects are maybe using jQuery now. So
I would be happy to use it.
Yep. All right. So do we have some more questions? Time for asking last questions. And yeah, that was pretty nice release, I think. So we added support for a couple of things that was requested for a pretty long time. And again, I think it's nice. It's incremental, no big changes, no big breaking changes on the normal repository. Again, in the main repository, the core one, there are no breaking changes, and we are not planning releasing version V2. So in other words, no plan to release a new major like with Go. So you are using this now, it's working now, it should work in a couple of years. So I think it's also very useful. So you can depend on
5 years is probably long enough time to test breaking changes.
Yep.
Thankfully, the interfaces stayed stable since then. Should we move to the quiz then?
Yeah, I guess. So congratulations everybody who stayed with us for that long. And yeah, just a reminder, we have 3 gophers to win.
Yeah.
You want to please show it to camera again?
Those are the unique gophers. We have 3 of them. So the rules are trivial. So you need to open the link, and we'll give you time to type in your email, so it's fair. Just a couple of minutes, and then we will ask you the question. So you type the answer, and that's it. And we will contact the first 3 winners. And oh yeah, sure, I can show the link. We will basically mail them to you. And we should probably collect to what countries they already were delivered. I think there are a few continents at least.
Yeah, gophers are
Those
traveling.
guys travel a lot.
Some people also were asking about stickers, but this time we don't have stickers. But yeah, maybe on the next release we'll have some stickers.
Yeah, we took too many to GopherCon Europe. They were gone. Okay, I'll just give you a minute more. Yeah, so maybe we can use the time to thanks everyone. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Yeah, leave thumbs up on YouTube. So I know that if you like this, I know that this is not type of content that will go that viral, but again, maybe it will go to a bit more people. So don't forget it.
All right. Hope you're ready. So the question is about date. So what was the date of the first ever GitHub release of Watermill?
Again, the date of first ever release of Watermill on GitHub?
It was version 0.3.0.
All right, so answers are probably coming.
Yeah, I think that's it for today, right?
Yep. So again, thank you very much for your time. We'll see soon for the next release, or maybe a bit earlier. Let's see. Maybe we'll prepare also something interesting a bit earlier.
If you have any ideas for features, let us know. We also don't do Watermill in all possible contexts. Probably just a
Yep. So again, thank you very much, and see you soon.
Thanks, guys. See you.